The OBSBOT Tiny 2 is a 4K webcam that is absolutely packed with smart AI features. But I think you'd be forgiven if you were a little bit skeptical about how good a webcam can actually be. I certainly was, but when OBSBOT reached out and sent over a review unit for the channel, I thought, why not? Let's check it out. And I'm really glad that I did. Before we run through all those smart features, let's have a look at the specs. Because even if you're just going to use this as a standard webcam, it's still pretty impressive. It has a 1 to 1.5 inch CMOS sensor, and by utilizing its 50 megapixels, it can focus up to 4 times faster than the original OBSBOT Tiny. It's a little bit disappointing that you can't shoot in 24 frames per second, which is generally how I shoot my videos. But it can go from 720 60 all the way up to 4K 30. In terms of image quality, it's been really impressive as well. Prior to this, I had been using a Logitech 4K webcam, and I often got remarks from colleagues on Zoom calls that it looked like I was sitting in a fridge because the white balance was so off, it turned everything in this room blue. The Tiny 2 handles that really well, and it has really good auto white balance, so I feel like I'm getting quite a representative image whenever I'm on call. OBSBOT comes with a really good app as well, so you can tweak all of the colors and saturation if you want to and get exactly the look that you are going for, but I generally just leave it on the preset settings because I think it's perfectly serviceable. While I'm giving you a demo of what the microphone sounds like on the Tiny 2, I thought it would be a good opportunity to run through some of the voice gestures you can use to control the camera. And I was a little bit worried because I work in the media and I constantly have conversations about tracking with my colleagues. But the cool thing about the Tiny 2's voice recognition is it knows when I'm speaking in a sentence or in a conversation, and it's not going to trigger if I just say track me like this in passing. But if I do take a moment to pause and say track me, there you go, got me that time. It actually now is going to center on my face, and it's going to follow me around the room in a similar way to Center Stage does on an iPad or a MacBook. And this is a really cool feature, especially if you do want to do something that's a bit more of a dynamic presentation. Even if you move further back, and you can kind of see it following me around the room like this, sun in my face. It is a really cool feature, and you can do a lot more than just track using voice controls. So let's say zoom in closer, and now you're getting a much fuller frame of my face, whether you ask for it or not. So let's say zoom out further. There you go, and we're right back at it. You can see you really do have to pause before giving those commands, otherwise it's going to think it's part of a sentence. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just tracking myself walking around the room using the upper body tracking. So let's move this big old fashioned camera out the way, and you can see as I'm just kind of like strolling around my room, it's keeping up with me quite well, and this could be a really cool way of filming B-roll if you are a solo creator. I think I'm going to start using this quite a bit to do some nice little shots moving around my room. Let's say you're the quiet type, then you can absolutely use your hands to do some of these gestures as well. For example, I just have to lift my palm to my face like this, and now it's going to start tracking me just as it did before. I actually stopped it then by accident, so you need to be pretty quick about moving your hand away once you've got it up. And now I can see it kind of tracking me around like this. I can zoom in by putting up an L. There you go. And now I don't know how to zoom out, so I'm screwed. But luckily there is a reference on the actual OBSBOT app. If you ever forget these, you can do this dynamic zoom. So let's see what that one looks like. If I move in and out, wow, that's pretty cool. And get exactly the right amount of zoom that I wanted to. So actually that is something I find is really nice. And if I just want to stop zooming entirely, I don't know. All right, so let's just press my preset button and get back to where I was before. While the voice controls and the hand gestures are really impressive, my preferred way of controlling the Tiny 2 is to use my Stream Deck. There's a really good app that you can download straight from the Elgato Marketplace, and you can use it to do all of the important gimbal functions with the Tiny 2. So let's take a look at how I've got it set up to operate my desk setup. And I'm going to start by pressing the button to take you down to my desktop mode. Cool, so here we are in the desktop mode, and you can see exactly what I've got to set up my Stream Deck. Now, the important thing to know is that if you are just going to try and export videos using the native OBSBOT webcam app, it's going to do so in a movie format called .mkv, and that's actually not compatible with Final Cut Pro. I would recommend using something like Photo Booth on macOS. So the first thing I've got to show you is that I've actually just got a Photo Booth launcher here, which means I can open it up whenever I want to do some content creation. And here I've got some pretty easy controls. Just here is the camera preset for camera 1. And then when I come back down, I'm going to the desktop mode. And I'm actually doing that pressing this button here, which is a multi-function, which is initially going to go into camera 2 and then into the desktop mode. And that's because of the way my OBSBOT is set up. The second camera angle, you see here that you're actually just getting an angled view of my torso, which nobody wants to look at. So different camera position and then follow up with the desktop view so I get exactly how I like it to be. Now, it's not perfect. You can see that the way it's angled down is slightly off center. So I've also got some gimbal controls here, which I'm going to use to just tilt the OBSBOT back and forth and just try to sort of align that a little bit better. So now I've got a straight view, and I can even move it down. And this is a really cool thing of the way the AI works, because you would think that pivoting the camera towards me would just increase the angle and, not actually show the flat view of the table. But that's how cool this desktop mode is, because it's actually going to flatten the image and try to keep it looking like that desktop view, no matter what angle it's actually pointing at. Another slightly annoying thing about this desktop view, though, is the way it's going to mirror the image. Like, even now, I'm looking in the viewfinder on my photo booth, and it looks exactly how I see it. So I can see the Stream Deck logo written exactly in the right way. It's not a mirror image, but I know that when I export this file, it will be mirrored. So one thing I've got here as well is a little mirror image button, which is going to allow me to flip the mirror image of the camera. There are tons of other features you can control using the Stream Deck, but these are just the ones that make the most sense to me. So as I was editing the video yesterday, I noticed that whenever I changed the camera angle using the Stream Deck, it picked up some weird kind of audio interference, kind of like an electrical buzz and a bit of echoing on my voice. I cut out as much of it as I could because I didn't want to disrupt the video too much, but I left some in so you could get an honest kind of view of what the camera is actually going to be like to operate. I think it's such a shame because this is an amazing camera for streamers, but it could be a deal breaker if you are going to be using that desktop view very often and operating it with a Stream Deck. So yeah, anyway, back to the video. The physical design of the Tiny 2 is not as inconspicuous as the name would suggest. Compared to traditional webcam forms, it's actually going to be a little bit easier to spot on the top of your monitor. But that's so it can pack in all those powerful internals and make the most of a really powerful 2-pivot gimbal. And as impressive as all the software elements are in the Tiny 2, this gimbal is really what's going to give it the power to track you in real time across different parts of your room. There's also a really nice solution to putting your webcam to sleep. Instead of having a clunky flap that knocks your webcam off axis whenever you want to be genuinely sure it's not filming you, the OBSBOT simply turns its camera to the ground and captures a black shot of the stand. There's another important aspect of the Tiny 2's build though, and that is that it's actually pretty portable. It even ships with a really nice case that carries all the important cables and stands you need for the OBSBOT Tiny 2. You can liberate this from your computer's monitor and use it anywhere around your room on a tripod to film different kinds of footage. And in the end, it's really useful for somebody who works as a content creator or has a job that requires filming themselves at home. So what exactly do all of these AI features amount to? It's really not just a webcam, is it? If you're a streamer, this is the kind of camera that could replace a multi-camera setup. But honestly, it's not even just content creators. These days, people are working from home in all kinds of professions and doing demonstrations over things like Zoom calls. While my wife was pregnant, we did loads of training calls for how to look after a newborn baby, CPR for babies, all that kind of stuff, which was essentially a midwife streaming instructions via a webcam. And this is exactly the kind of technology which would actually level up their teaching abilities just by giving them some more options in the room. I wouldn't recommend that everybody goes out and spends £300 on a webcam, but if you are in one of those kind of jobs, I think you'll realise pretty quickly just how many possibilities a webcam like this actually offers to you. Thanks again to OBSBOT for sending over the Tiny 2. Check out this video next, and thank you so much for watching.